Hey guys, it's your boy M.K.S again. Uh, sorry, just want to talk about this idea. Normally, I mentioned in my previous videos, I'm normally quite secretive of my ideas, but the East India Company, formerly the British East India Company, I think it was one of a few companies, from what I understand, from my limited knowledge, which apparently gave birth to the empire, the British Empire, and I think the biggest company probably in history, I think, was the Dutch East Indies Company, which so it's quite a similar name, but they ran trade between like Indonesia and places like that. So I'd love to support. I think that the Dutch and other European countries benefited from the exploitation of Asian and African nations. So to be honest, I'd love to see those Asian and African nations, as I would see it, in my opinion, justice for those to benefit. Like, so for the Dutch colonies to work together, like Indonesia, South Africa, and countries like that, and to benefit from the trade. And I think, and I'd love to encourage the international community to support those countries to benefit. And I want to talk about some of the reasons why I wish to support India. Possibly share this with a group I made on Facebook for the East India Company, ASAP, and videos like this. And I'm hoping to, possibly my next video might even be, or my next few videos might be, but I'm going to sleep quite late, which I shouldn't do. But anyway, all being well, if I get the chance, my usual 30-point list broken into 3 parts of why I wish to support India. Might do that for another day, I don't know. But anywho, so in this video, I'll possibly talk about some ideas or some reasons for supporting India. And yeah, I suppose for me, it's like justice, really. It's I think that the Indians did most of the work and had most of the losses, and Britain benefited. So I think it's fair for India now to benefit. But I suppose some people say the caste system, if you care about the poor, the caste system always, I don't know if this is true or not, if you look back in history, but India was said to be one of the richest countries in the world, and or the richest even, but the caste system, you could say that if you care about the poor, the poor were persecuted. But I think I often talk about making a positive from a negative. So I think that with this project I want to do, I could always look at supporting the poorest people in India, the poorest 10% of people in every country is who I wish to support, and like homeless people in India. And I think during the homeless World Cup, Football World Cup, homeless version, it said there was 70 million, I think it was, homeless people in India. I need to double check that figure, but I think it was 70 million. So I'd love to support those people, and as I put it, make a positive from a negative. I'd love to support women in India as well, and disabled people, especially dyslexic people, and to talk about the strengths, like the support. I think it would be quite an irony if I could somehow utilize India's dyslexic people to come up with creative ideas, and also perhaps India to host events for, as well as Malaysia and Indonesia and Singapore, could host events for to bring together dyslexic people from around the world, and billionaires from around the world, and dyslexic billionaires and general billionaires and things like that, host lots of events, not just for dyslexia, but also just generally, which I hope to benefit India. But yeah, that's the reason why I want to support India, because I believe, in spite there's lots of things I don't like about India, perhaps like my thinking about how they treat the poor or how they treat girls. Apparently in some areas they throw them onto the street or even beat them up or stuff like that, which I disagree with. And possibly people like my fellow dyslexics. And I'm sure that people say India can be quite racist. So there are things I disagree with about India, and it can be very violent and things like that which I don't agree with. Um, but I think that I still think it would be justice to support India and, as I say, maybe even support some of those groups. Like if there are more Indians in politics, more women in politics in India, maybe the assaults on women or girls, including the I don't know if I can say this word because I want to keep family. Let's say basically the sexual assaults or other things that happen to women in India. I wonder if there's more female leaders in roles like as teachers, but also as politicians, lawmakers, policymakers, and things like that, then they could also look at how they can stem domestic violence, especially against girls, and make strict rules that, like, if people beat children, then the police will beat them back. But yeah, so it's there are things I dislike about India, but I want to talk about the honest reason and being as honest as possible about why I would like to support India, in spite of the things I don't like about India, just like Italian football, um, which I talked about before. But I don't like the violence or the football hooliganism, racism, and things like that, and possibly some of the arrogance or whatever. But yeah, I still support the team overall because for whatever reason. I still love the passion, the colour of the kits and teams and all that. I like the names of the teams because I supported them when I was younger as well. It's like nostalgia. So I want to talk about the reasons why I wish to support. So even though there's lots of things I dislike about India, I still think that apparently they were the richest country in the world and all their wealth was taken away. So to me, the wealth being taken away means that it would be justice if they could get the wealth back. So it's one of the countries I really wish to support, possibly the biggest country I wish to support, not just because I'm part Indian, half Indian or whatever, but also because of. So I'm sitting back a bit because I hope you can still hear me, but I'm sitting back because my back is a bit sore. So yeah, so that's hopefully explain some of the reasons why I wish to support India, as I say, because I think, as I say, people say India was the richest country and the wealth was taken away from Britain. So I think it's fair for India to get back to where arguably it belongs. But I would love to support Dalits, I think they're called, the poor community in India. And I think my ancestry on my mum's side were merchant class or whatever. So, like, not the highest class, but somewhere in the middle, kind of. But closer to the top, or something like that. I'm not sure, but maybe even some of my ancestry might have treated Dalits bad. So I think it would make up for it if I could support them. Or I think I used to call them. I remember what I used to call them, but yeah, I think support Dalits to become entrepreneurs and to be empowered in politics and try and make the country more peaceful. Try to make India avoid wars as much as possible, but obviously, if it's attacked, it has to defend itself. But yeah, I would love to support India financially, but I would love to also encourage India to be like a part of peace in the world, because I support peace myself, and also somehow to tackle poverty and also to have religious tolerance, and anyone who's a law-abiding citizen, whether you're Christian, Muslim, Jewish, or Sikh or whatever, I think should be treated well in India, as long as you obey the law. Obviously, they have to take on terrorist threats and all that, but yeah, I'd love to hear what other people think. Would you consider supporting India? And if so, is it because of some of the reasons I talked about? Or is it for different reasons? Like, I think people say the Jewish community, like, they get treated really well in India, and it's one of the places they feel safest, generally speaking. Unfortunately, with a few terrorist attacks, it's not quite always as safe. But I think that's another incentive to support the country and try and tackle terrorist threats and things like that. But yeah, so as I say, what do you dislike or like about India? Through the project, I wish to support them. I wish to also be honest about some of the things I dislike about India, but I also wish to support them overall and help them to become one of the richest countries, not the richest, if I could, through my ideas and that kind of thing. And support their projects, like their YouTube channels, YouTubers, their businesses, enterprises, political situation, female entrepreneurs. That's my mum. So hopefully in time she'll appreciate that. Because my mum's of Indian origin. Even though I can be quite sexist myself. But anyway, I'm probably waffling, but just being as honest as possible. So I don't want to lie about the reasons why I wish to support India. To me, it's just like, it literally is not because I think India is always great or always doing good things or that kind of thing, or the most ethical necessarily, but because they didn't. I don't think they've ever invaded any countries, but they've been invaded, and to me, it's as I say, it's quite just to support India, in my opinion. I know I try to invite as many Indians as possible to the group I made on Facebook, which bears the similar sort of title to what I just posted in this video. And they said, I don't want to join your group because you don't care about India. And if you look at the first point on that group, it said, I wish for India to financially or economically benefit from this project, just like Britain did in the past. So I think if you actually read if you saw the group, you'd know that the goal is to support India. As I say, because I believe it's just. So I don't know why people would make that assumption. But anyway, I think people make a lot of assumptions about things. But I do want to be honest about some of the negative things as well, as I say. Just like a bit like the channel, I think India in Details. I think by a Polish lady who's married to an Indian guy, and I think her channel really made me. Is one of the reasons why I wish to support India. And another one is a guy called Shashi Tharoor. I think he's done some great speeches about dispelling some of the myths about British benevolence in India. Talking about some of the things like the Bengal famine, I think is probably one he mentioned. Well, that's certainly been mentioned. The freedoms that were taken away, the railways, how Indians had to pay for it with both labour and money, which was for the benefit of Britain, and many other things. He's written a book. I was reading some of it, but I'm not much of a reader, but it was quite an interesting book, which even had the chronology of how Britain invaded India and took away the confidence and lots of things like that. So there's been lots of talks about that kind of thing. And so I'd love to see India and Africa work together. Africa as a continent, I know, but in the subcontinent of India, which I think is great to see that they are doing. And hopefully their government will encourage cooperation between the people of India and Africa especially, and also the rest of Asia as well. As I say, the British East India Company that I would like to create is very different to the former one. It's almost opposite. Like it's taking an imperialist idea and making it almost opposite. So the goal also is not just support India, but also, as well as encouraging other countries to support India, it's also for India to support other colonized countries to work together, like even Iraq or other Asian nations and African nations, as many as possible. So Asian and African nations to work together as much as possible as well. Maybe even some like countries like Ireland, which were colonized, or countries that have been divided, such as India, Ireland, Argentina, Spain, Morocco. I know Spain was the one that actually divided Morocco, but for like I think it's 6 countries in the world which have been split up. Even China is one of them, I think. Might be more than that, but yeah, so those countries to work together more. I'd love to see India and China working together more as well, because both were colonized as well, and look at what they have in common ground. So yeah, hopefully people found this video interesting. As ever, I'd love to hear your thoughts. As say, does this video or anything else for that matter inspire you? Do you want to support India financially or buy Indian products, or does it make you indifferent, or worse for it, does it make you want to support India less? I don't know how that would work, but do you think it is justice to support India? And do you think that the British Empire did wrong to India, or do you think differently? So I try to be coherent. I'd love to hear your opinions on that sort of thing, and possibly also what you think would be the best way to support India. Any ideas that you have? Just trying to think. I think I've run out. But yeah, so I think that it's. Sorry, I'm conscious this video is quite long, so I hope it doesn't put a lot of people off. But I hope someone out there watches it and is interested in it. And yeah, so I know I said before, I've said quite a few times that I didn't want to talk about dyslexia until October, which is Dyslexia Awareness Month. But I do want to plan ahead for that time. And in October, I would love to see events, like loads of events about the strengths of dyslexia, inviting organisations like Made by Dyslexia and the Dyslexia Advantage and Indians to learn about dyslexia and how dyslexics can build the economy. So that would be like killing two birds with one stone, as the saying goes, because I'd be supporting my fellow dyslexics, especially in India, and I'd be representing India at the same time. So that would feel really good. I'm sure, and definitely should appreciate it if I managed to achieve that. And yeah, possibly even to invite wealthy dyslexic millionaires, or even billionaires like Richard Branson and Charles Schwab and people like that. John Chambers, I think, is a billionaire, dyslexic billionaire. Invite all these dyslexic billionaires to come meet, and also possibly have networking events for millionaires and billionaires to meet in India, and just other events that I hope will benefit the Indian economy. And I know I think they've done some great summits between India and South Africa, and even other parts of Africa like Kenya, I think, which has a large Indian diaspora, and have a lot in common, like overcoming sort of imperialism, fighting for their freedom, independence. And I think a lot of African countries can also learn from India and China about how they've grown their economies as well. So yeah, I hope India and China in the future will work more closely together, and Asia and Africa generally, especially colonized countries. As colonized countries. And I really hope India does well financially, / economically, or whatever. Especially female entrepreneurs and more women in politics, and also does trade with Africa, like exchanges ideas about supports African technology in return for trade, political support, and things like that. Like, for instance, African countries could come together and support the East India Company reformation in favour of India, because in return for tech support and things like that. And I hope people around the world will say, yeah, I think India was wronged and does deserve reparations. So that's my opinion anyway. I think it'd be very hard to change my mind. As I say, like I put it this way, if I saw a robber or someone who was robbed, I wouldn't want to support the person who's a robber or a thief or whatever the difference is between them, between a robber and a thief, or someone steals or takes without permission or breaks the law. I wouldn't want to support that person. I would want to support the person who was wronged in some way. As I say, for that reason, I support Asian and African nations more. And that's my opinion. But yeah, I'd love to hear your opinions and feedback. I know I've waffled a bit, so I hope that the duration of this video doesn't put people off, but I do my videos live, so I don't really edit them very much. Anyway, good night, guys. Peace out.